Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
So let's start with a funny story. Funny, sad story. A few years ago, when I was listening to my favorite radio station, shout out Mix 1041 here in Boston, I was listening to the afternoon drive radio show. And one of the DJs, a woman, was talking about how she had sent a card to a friend whose father had died. And she sent this card, and at the end of it, she said, LOL. And it was puzzling because LOL means laugh out loud. She thought it meant lots of love. So, what she essentially said was, I'm really sorry about your father dying. Laugh out loud. She was mortified. And so today we're going to talk about some of those social media acronyms because a lot of times people don't know what they stand for. I remember there's actually the very first episode of Modern Family when one of the fathers says, WTF, why the face? Well, WTF, the F stands for the word that we won't use. The other two are what the. Same thing with WTH. It doesn't mean why the heavens. So let's talk a little bit, sisters, about some of the social media acronyms that actually they have gotten so far into our lexicon that people don't remember. Barbara, why are you holding that up? People don't know what they stand for. And so we need to remind people, especially older people, some of us, not necessarily baby boomers, but Gen Xers or whatever, that the language, as always, is always changing. And you have to know what they mean. And IYK, YK. If you know, you know.
Okay.
So,
Now, let me say this. When the whole texting craze began a few years back, it was extremely aggravating to English teachers in particular, because now you have these students that don't want to spell things out. They want to use the language of acronyms, and this is not helping them educationally. It's not teaching them how to be good writers. And it is also not teaching them how to spell things correctly. And so there was this conflict between educators and students and how they wanted to communicate using this type of language. And it's not real language, it's almost like code. It's a special thing for people, in my opinion, are too lazy to spell things out. I would find this thing extremely aggravating when people who did not know how to pronounce a name they were not familiar with, maybe it was a foreign name, maybe it was a foreign name of a student from another country or something, everybody wanted to shorten your name. And the person with the long name that needed practice learning how to pronounce would say, oh, just call me Jack, or oh, just call me Joe, or oh, just call me Sal. All these short things, because people were too lazy. And I don't want to jump on all the Americans, but it seems to fall on us that we're too lazy to learn the person's name. I had a child once from Nigeria when I was substitute teaching. All of the other students, and this was fourth grade, all of the other students knew how to pronounce his name and they said it. I found myself, I had this class for a week. I found myself stumbling over this child's name and I said, doggone it, I am going to say your name until I get it right. Before the end of the week, I was able to say this child's name without fumbling, stumbling, and looking like I didn't know how to speak the mother tongue. But I find that it is important in this age when you are dealing with social media to know what these things stand for. And there is actually a website that I found that said 130 most important social media acronyms and slang you should know. This helps you in being a bit more progressive, not behind the times, able to communicate with people, not saying the wrong thing and thinking you are really happening, like IDK, which stands for I don't know. And it doesn't hurt to ask if you see something you don't recognize when someone has texted you or messaged you. Ask them, what does that mean? There's no shame in not knowing because there are so many of them that will tell you what certain short acronyms mean in everyday conversation.
And this is the thing that we have to understand when people say, oh, they're made up words. Guess what, people? All language is made up. All language is made up. We didn't come out of the womb with some fully functioning way of speaking. Every language is made up, every sound, and our language is constantly evolving. And some of those and some of those acronyms, they also have things that people use in business. It's not just social media that uses this. It is also when you go to look for a job, for instance, you
Mm-hmm.
need to know what B2B means, or B2C, and that is B2 as in the number. That's business to business or business to consumer. And these are some of the things that they use. Acronyms are used everywhere. It's not just lazy kids, it's not just people who just text and would rather text rather than call because all of a sudden calling is rude. It is the way that we communicate, and it is ever evolving. So when you go on a website and you're looking at let's say Indeed, or what's the other one, there's a couple of them, that um, ZipRecruiter, and they will have these acronyms in their job description. And you're
Yes.
thinking, okay, I
What
think
is
I
that?
can fake that. Well, you need to know what they're asking for. If they're looking for a marketer that can do business to business, and you only know how to do sales, and which means you're more business to consumer or whatever, you're you're not qualified for that, and you need to learn these things and not be frightened of them. And a lot of times, like, instead of saying LOL when you mean lots of love, you can say laugh out loud, you can say, whatever. Now it's funny because my daughter could always tell when I was texting, because as a copy editor I would spell things out. And that's fine because I want to be clear, because texting always doesn't give you context. But when you use slang, uh, uh, words, or initials that mean something, you know what it means. Google it if you don't know. There's lots of times that I'll see something and I'll just Google the word, and I'll go to my urban dictionary or whatever, and it will tell you what you mean. Because sometimes you can insult someone without understanding that you are insulting them, or things get lost in the applesauce because you don't know what you're answering or what you're asking.
And you know what? Even in the pharmacy uh, language, I will get a text from my pharmacy saying your MET is ready for pickup. And I
Right.
will look at that and go, well, what is that? And I have to ask because I went to the pharmacy and they had the wrong medication and it wasn't what
Yes.
I thought it was. But they just use these initials and I'm supposed to know what it is.
Well, that's one
Exactly.
thing. It's important to not be too embarrassed to ask if you don't know. There are a lot of times people have used slang, they've used abbreviations, they've used acronyms. I had no clue what they were talking about, and I just asked. And like you, Cheryl, I will, if I'm sending a text message, I write everything out. I use proper punctuation. I knew all the right journalistic things
That's
that
old people. That's old people texting, but
It is
I'll
old
still
people.
do it. I'll still do it. I don't care.
at least I know that people understood what I said. I don't want to use the wrong abbreviation. I don't want to be misunderstood. So I'd rather just write the whole thing out because a lot of times people will text me things and they'll throw a couple of alphabets in there, and I'm like, what the heck? And I'm spending 15 minutes trying to figure out what they meant, and I finally figure out what the letters mean, but they could have just wrote it out. But I do understand that it is, because communication is so rapid, there is a need to abbreviate things just for the sake of time. And like you say, language is ever evolving. So just because it's evolving and people younger than us are the ones that are directing its course doesn't mean, oh, this is terrible, our language is going to pot. No, it's always been evolving. And one time I was teaching, I think it was sophomore English, and I put different slangs on the board, common slangs, the word used for man, the
Mhm.
word used for good, um, and I think it was something else. Um, but
I'm down with that.
depending, something good, bad, and man, those three things, and depending on which decade you were 16 years old, depending on the word that you would use for those terms. So I'm the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. And what was funny is the realization that language is actually developed by 16-year-olds, just so you
Yes.
know. So
Yes,
that is
I
the same in
remember
every
that.
era. So that being the case, you got teenagers texting and they coming up with, IDK, and like, what does that mean? And yeah, this is who helps our language evolve. This is who comes up with slang for things. And when you don't know what your students or your children or your grandchildren are talking about, yeah, it is like they got a little secret language, and you gotta, unless you're around people of a certain age, you have no clue what they're talking about. It's a lot of things that I just recently found out about. A lot of terms I just recently knew what it meant, and you know, 20 years ago, the word for good means one thing, but today the word for good yesterday means bad, and the word for bad means good, depending on which slang you're using and which era you were 16 years old. So,
I, you
Some
know,
of these letters really mean, if I see AMA, my first thought is American Medical Association.
right. Now,
But
what is
what
AMA?
it is ask me anything.
I would
yeah,
not have known that.
I
yes,
wouldn't have either.
yes.
99% of the acronyms, I have no clue because I like
And of
stuff.
course, you have to realize it also depends on the context because AMA it also could mean against medical advice.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't know
everything, no matter what it is, you have to get context like you do in our language anyway. I would hate to be an English learner at an older age because so many
you'd be
words
so
have
confused.
so many they have different pronunciations and they have to have different meanings. The word minute and the word minute are exactly spelled the same but they're totally different.
How would you
um
know?
and then the word, and of course there's three different theirs and people always use the wrong one. The
Yeah.
word TO and TWO all mean different things, and so it's hard, but social
Yeah.
meaning with social acronyms a lot of times it actually clears it up because of that context.
Well,
uh
let me just jump in here of something I just thought of. When you've got certain local wording that is social for its location, like you, use, and y'all.
And I'm sorry, I've been in Boston longer than I've been anywhere else in my life. And even I've started using the word wicked, which means very, Very. Oh, that's wicked good. That's wicked
Now, I never
bad.
heard
That's
that one.
Yeah.
Never heard
because you
that
don't
one.
live here, but I live here, and there are certain Boston and Massachusetts expressions that make perfect sense to me. But they didn't when I first got here, but they do now. So the language is also
It's
regional.
regional, it's cultural,
Oh yeah.
and there are words because we got a couple of our show hosts during the week that are from the UK, and they they use a couple of expressions that I'm like, what? Okay, now I know that means this because and then the thing now is, oh, that's brilliant. Of course, that means good. Definitely a British term.
And there are
But
some words that mean something bad. Like I remember when our kids were young and someone was chasing one of the kids and saying, "Let me get that little booger." And the English guests were like, "Whoa, you just said a bad word,"
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. There are a lot,
wouldn't,
and a lot
wouldn't
of
know.
profanities are words that it's not as harsh
Hmm.
here.
They might
There
really
are
be.
things that people spell out, but they're not really spelling out. Uh, it's very interesting, and
Yeah,
it's up to us to be aware of what our kids are saying, because
yeah,
back when the internet was young and children were on the internet and they didn't want to communicate that their parents were watching, they would say POS, which
Yeah.
meant parents over shoulder,
Yeah.
oh,
which
let's
mean
see.
that they
That's
were
what.
looking.
That's what I
POS means
wouldn't.
piece of you know what now. So it's yeah, so like I said,
Yeah.
everything evolves. And
Ah,
what you think may have meant 30 years ago don't
it
mean
means
that now.
something different.
And
I was looking
other
at.
countries will use the same word but pronounce it differently. I know this from my kids living in Australia. When I say that my son works at a leisure center, well, they pronounce it leisure, but it's
Yeah,
spelled the same way. And there are a lot of words that are like that.
Specific
schedule,
I know. When I hear,
instead
I'm
of
like, what's
schedule.
wrong with your ch?
Yeah, yes,
Schedule? You mean a schedule? But yes,
yeah,
you hear a lot of different pronunciations, and then even common acronyms. Well, of course, everybody might know what TGIF means. Thank God it's Friday.
Yeah.
But now I just found out TBBH. What does that mean? Anybody know?
to be brutally honest.
I would not have known that. So I just learned that.
You are today years old.
Yeah, today years old. Yes. So
That's another new one. Then people will say, "Oh, I just learned that." They'll say, "I was today years old when I
I was
learned
today
this."
years old. Yeah, that's it. So there's so many things. It's better if someone sends you a message over social media, they text you or whatever the case may be, and you don't know. It's better to ask. Don't
Yeah.
guess because if you
What did
guess
you say?
wrong,
TBT, Throwback Thursday.
Yeah,
Like on
yeah,
yeah, now I
social
wouldn't
media,
know what that
they'll
meant.
throw
right.
something where they have a picture of themselves
And
20
all
years
of us
ago on
know
a
what
Thursday or
FOMO is. FOMO,
Uh,
fear of missing out. When
I
people,
wow.
would not know that. And the thing is, you gotta
see, this is
also.
why I live on Instagram. For anybody ever wants to find me, that's where I'm actually living on Instagram. But that's the thing, and SMH, shaking my head,
Yeah.
Yeah.
SMDH. Obviously, you're adding something else. That IMO, in my opinion, IMHO, in my humble opinion, and
Oh,
these
okay,
are
well, you
just
got that one.
so normalized now that I have seen the word ION, meaning I don't, but also ION in other news.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
everything is context. And
yeah.
if you if you
Oh,
live
I
on
like
social
this
media,
one. Rolling on the floor, laughing
laughing
my A
A
off.
off. Yeah.
Yeah. R.
Yeah. And then there's that, was that LMFAO FAO, which
Yeah, laughing my F and A off. Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Now I thought the F meant fat, so I didn't know.
And then there's
Let me tell you
OMG.
something. If the F is in most things, it doesn't mean fat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Not even on a weight loss page.
Not even on a weight loss thing. No, it doesn't mean fat.
So
It almost
now
never
I
means
did
fat.
learn something new today. Now,
And I
Then there's
absolutely,
OMG, which I always said, oh my gosh, but now it's if it's oh my god, oh I'm cursing. Let me like spell it out.
yeah, but
yeah,
that's the
but
thing. And
OMG.
some things that people will say, and I hesitate to say this, but if you see somebody saying, see you next Tuesday,
That's not what it means.
that is not what it means.
It's always good to
Don't
know
use
when
the
people
yeah. If
are
you
masking
spelled
the
it out, if you
vulgarity.
spelled it out and used the letter C, you would get what they were calling you.
Mm-hmm. And so this is why it's always good to ask if you don't know. You don't know if you might be using a vulgarity.
Which
And
that
also
is.
you have to make sure that when you do write out something that your spell correct feature doesn't decide you meant something else and try to
Yes.
correct
Yeah.
the spelling. Now, some acronyms are, cultural, regional, all that sort of thing. A very common one is ASA among Muslims. Now, you would
Mm-hmm.
not know that probably unless you were in that community. It means Assalamu
Assalamu
alaikum.
alaikum. Yes.
Mhm.
But now, if your spell check decides you misspell that, and it's happened to me a
Yeah.
couple of times, and they would decide that I really meant ASS. So before you hit send, make sure that your
Check
spell
everything.
check
Always.
is not
Because
correct.
Because you
they
can't
will
pull
check
those
you
things
at the
back.
last minute and you have sent a message you didn't mean to send. And then you got to
Yes.
go back and say,
And
I didn't mean
explain.
that.
I didn't mean that. I meant but they've had 10 minutes to be mad at you by the time
Yeah.
you
Well,
realize.
that's when you put the little asterisk in there, and then you write what you meant to say, and we've all
Yeah.
done that.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
it's just
Yeah.
yeah. There's so many
Always
things.
check before you hit send, because I've couple of times almost start out a letter with ASS, which I didn't mean to do. Because it could have been
And not even
unexpected.
that. There are certain people or certain spellings of things that are a certain way, and spell check wants to correct you. Like
Yes.
Yeah,
you don't know how to
names.
spell your friend's name or something.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
So you have to always check when you're sending something that is an abbreviation, a slang, an unusually spelled name, because our smartphones think they're smarter than we are, and they
Yeah.
will
Yes.
and
And
they
they're
will
not.
correct
They're
things that
yeah.
you didn't need to be corrected. But I get text messages all the time with new abbreviations, and I will just ask, what does that mean? And maybe I sound ancient, but I'd rather know than not know, or spend 15 or 20 minutes trying to figure it out before I finally get it, and then I might still guess the wrong word. So it's
Yes.
better to just ask the person what they meant. And now this one I just saw, TLDR, too long, didn't read. Okay, now
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
never heard that one before.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, it's a lot of things that probably are even, and people make up new ones every day. People say language is made up. Well, yeah, language is made up, like you say. It's every language is made up.
Now
So
TMI is one that people actually know a lot. Too much
too much
information.
information. Yeah, TMI.
Yeah.
Somebody
TMI.
too much of that
Yes.
business you really didn't need to know.
Well, this is
TMI.
what's funny, you all though. There actually is a black game. There is a game that has all of these things. And I meant to, the last time I saw it pop up on my Instagram feed, I meant to write down what the name of the game is. And it's all of these acronyms. And one of them, it ends up being, if you don't get your A in the MF house, before I beat your, and it's
Oh, I
it's
think I
all
saw that
letters.
on I don't know, it was Facebook or something, and
Yes.
they were saying, "Can you fill in the blanks what these words
and
mean?"
and the thing is that because we
You
all lived
can.
in this apparently all lived in the same neighborhood everywhere,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then you start laughing because
because
you
The
know what it
urban
is.
talk.
common blackisms. Yeah,
Yes, 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 exactly. So there's also, going back to that, the cultural thing of what
yeah,
something may mean in your culture that it may not mean something else, somewhere else, somebody else. ASA, if you don't know someone who's Muslim, you don't know that that means assalamu alaikum. You may think that they're calling you something else. They may spell correct. I have a thing that I used to put on my phone, a shortcut. You know how you have the shortcut so that when I'm driving, it would say OP. I would write OP, and meaning on the phone, or
OP
or whatever, OP. Well, every time I go to write text something that says open, it goes on the phone, and I have to go back, and because that was a shortcut from that. So if so I always have to like check, like, no, that's not what I'm saying. So it's things like that. Your phone, the shortcuts that you use, the different spelling, unique spellings of people's names, and actually acronyms, once you know what they are, they make sense, and they do give you the context sometimes that spelling out something may not. So I don't always say that it's kids being lazy or young people being lazy, because it's not kids anymore. It's young people being lazy. It's social media, it's business, it's everywhere, and it would behoove us to understand and learn it, whether you're in the job market or you're just trying to communicate with other people.
But if you're in my class, you better spell it out.
So before we go, do you think that this widespread use of acronyms and the whole text speak that is very common now, do you think that's going to change the way we teach language and learn language in school, especially because you have a whole generation of teachers? This is how they've been talking. They don't even realize.
Yes, but they also probably, if they are teachers, they probably also learned how to properly speak, how to put together a sentence. However, the thing is that I found in my college classes, sometimes these kids, for them to be college students, they're not very good at punctuation and grammar.
That's what I'm
and
saying.
and it's like, but I think it's just, I don't think that they were taught wrong. I just think that they're lazy and they didn't learn it right.
Well, it also depends on who the students are. If they are a student and it is their second language, English is not their first language, I give a lot of grace for that.
You can give them some grace, but you still have to tell them that, because I also get international students, and this is where, and we can't get into it, but AI, they'll use Google Translate, which is very bad, or AI, and so they will get these things. And I actually have had to tell a student, if you're using this, please check it, go and talk to somebody in student assessment, because this isn't working, because what they're translating does not come out as English, not much less proper English, not even real sentences. So it's all
AI is not a person.
AI is not a person.
AI is not a
Google
person.
Translate is not very good. None of the translating apps are very good. So, and I know we have to go, but we give them some grace, but we still have to correct it so that we're not passing them on without letting them learn the proper way.
Exactly.
Well, if you're a teacher, just figure it out. You're going to have to really teach how to speak and write real words. Well, that's all for now. And join us again next week. And until that time, make sure you follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, 3 Black Moms. Until then, I'm Naima.
I'm Cheryl.
I'm Barbara. We are 3 Black Moms. Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're 3 Black Moms.